maybe.
I'm here. Okay, now I am
Yeah.
here with the volume, I think. Do you hear me?
Yeah, let us wait for a couple of minutes because there might be people joining.
I will wait, no problem.
Yeah, it's 16. This zooming back and forth in time is extremely interesting, I think. Like, looking at the responses to the Black Plague, the Black Death in Europe, and the earlier responses. I'm trying to look at that. So you're physically located in California right now, Marco.
In this moment, I'm located in Palm Springs. Yes.
Palm Springs. Okay. Yeah.
You are in Bogota?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Technically, I'm really 35 kilometers from Bogota. Let me show you just in this 1 minute, kind of overlooking these beautiful hills near Bogota in Chia, it's called. So we're really, spending the pandemic time, not in the city, but in the countryside.
That's a good idea.
Somehow.
That's a very good idea.
Yeah, it's very nice. That's a very nice thing. And you cannot move back and forth between California and Paris at this point, Marco. I can imagine.
There is a plane that is passing in this moment. So can you repeat?
So, okay. No. I think it is now time to start. Let me introduce you. And
I'm here.
So you will speak in English, French, Italian?
As you want. My idea was to speak English.
Spanish?
Of course, I can speak Italian because it's my language, or Spanish, or even French. So that's you decide. I think that I will speak English if it is good for you, even if my English is not very good. But I will do what I can. Certainly, my Italian is better my English.
Okay, so it is my pleasure to introduce for our last speaker of this session today is Marco Panza, a philosopher of mathematics, very well known philosopher of mathematics who works in Paris and in California. He's now in California, Chapman University, but normally he's also affiliated with HPST in Paris. And Marco will speak to us about observations on COVID-19 and the lockdown.
There is a problem with connecting with Andres. I don't know whether the other is hearing me, so I can begin?
Yes, we hear you, Marco.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
So thank you, first of all, thank you very much to Mirna and Andres for this invitation. I'm very happy to be here. I'm also very happy to see that Mirna and Andres, that are two very good friends that I know for different and known and parallel paths, can meet and collaborate together. That I did not know that they are also good friends between them. This is a very good news. Okay, thanks. So thank you very much for inviting me. In fact, I am not a scholar of pandemic. I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a sociologist. And so I have not so much to say, professionally speaking, about this situation. But Mirna asked me to make some reflection on the basis of the experience that I had during the lockdown. And that it is what I will do in 4 points, if I will have the time that you find in the abstract. So the order of the points is not very clear to me. Perhaps is the order of what I wanted to say. So in the sense that if I will not arrive to the first point, I will be happy for the first 3, etc. So let's begin with the first point. What I wrote in the abstract is the following sentence. The lockdown made it clear that human contact has quite a small part in the social life of today, and it even suggested further way of undermining this. In thinking again to this sentence, I think that in fact there is a small mistake in it. I was saying here a quite small part of human contact, but in fact what I should have said is a dispensable part. So perhaps that is not very small, this part has been important, but what we see with the pandemic and the lockdown in that a lot of things that we were accustomed to use because of human contact, closeness, physical closeness, can also be done in other ways. So human contact is not very, the question is not how small it is, the question is as dispensable it is. Now, dispensable to which price? So this is the point. Of course, dispensable to a certain important price that is very easy to see, that is the fact that is make our social life poorer, so perhaps increase familial contact, relation with kids, but certainly make social life poorer. So this is quite clear. Don't I think that I have to insist on it? What I want to insist is that making human contact dispensable introduce the necessity of new form of communication in some sense. And what I want to say, this new form of communication cannot simply be the transposition of the old form of communication under new means. I tell you my experience. I was teaching a class with a colleague of mine, a two-professor class, and from one day to the other, the university says, as you know, starting from tomorrow, you have to go online. So what we did was essentially what we are able to do. That is to continue our class exactly in the same way, but using Zoom rather than being present in the class. But after two classes that I gave, I became quite aware of the fact that it could not work because I did not have the same sort of contact with my students. So I could not look at their eyes and so to understand whether they were following me or not. So I decided to change the way of teaching, but the only thing that I could do was to apply the other only thing that I was able to, that I am able to do, write. I am able to teach in a usual way and to write in a usual way. So I began to write all notes of my class, and in the end of the story, I'm writing now a book of all that. And so I sent it to my students. Those notes, I wrote 200 pages for a class. But this, of course, in some sense, was my answer to the need of a new way of communication, but was not a good answer. It was simply the answer that I was able to give, because the only thing, I am 62 years old, and so I was learning to make my job in these two ways, speaking and writing, not in another way. So I could not follow another form of communication. But I'm very, very unhappy of the result. My students were happy, apparently, that they gave me very good evaluation, but that's not the point. The point in this made clear that we cannot simply transpose from the presence to the Zoom the same form of communication. And this is also the example of this conference. That is certainly not to criticize Mirna and Andreas, because they made exactly what I made. They simply to implement the way that they're able to follow. This conference is exactly an implementation of a workshop that we could have had in presence on the Zoom. And certainly it works in a certain way, but it does not exploit all the possibility of Zoom. And overall, there are a lot of things that are lost with respect to presence, and practically nothing that is gained with respect to presence. So I don't know, I really hope in a sense, but when I hope it, I don't know whether I hope it because I'm a conservator and an old man, or because I'm right in doing that. I hope that we come back to normality, if normality can be said it in this way. We come back in normality in few days, and so we will be able to come back to a normal form of communication, but possibly not only because of the pandemic, but also because this gave to the university the awareness that they can use the teaching personnel in another way, perhaps spending less money. So I think that this will be a step that will not have a step back in a complete way. And so I think that our community is in some sense asked to use this new form of communication in the good way. That is certainly not the normal way transposed to the Zoom. It cannot be. It cannot be, because this is a way that only lose but do not gain advantages of a new form of communication. So this is my first point. I have no real suggestion. I know that there are professionals that are working on online teaching from a long time. And so perhaps it is also a moment in which we should look at them and I think that I'm too old to learn a new way of teaching. But I think that for a lot of young people, this would be an important thing to learn a new way of teaching or communicating, on spreading knowledge and discussion. Because of this idea that we understood that a large part of human contact is dispensable. Can be dispensable for the well, but it can also dispensable for the bad. What is important to try to make it dispensable for the well, if we can. So this is my first point. Now I came to the second point that you see it very, very disconnected with the first one, but I make 4 independent reflections. So they're really independent. And this is the following. I had personally a fun experience in a sense, or terrible in the other sense. Not terrible for me personally, awfully. But is the following. I'm now in California, and I am from 35 years in Paris, but I came from Lombardia. That is one of the places in the world where the pandemic was more strong. And so I was following a lot was happening in Lombardia during this time, with a lot of errors made by the politics in this situation. And so I could tell you a lot of stories, one very fun, someone very dramatic. But I will tell you only one that appeared to me very symptomatic. In a certain moment, the news appeared on the newspaper that the air dot indexes in Lombardia arrived to 0.51. I don't know whether all of you know what is the air dot indexes. The only important things to know, it is a statistical index. So it is an index that measures in a certain way that I have not to explain the expectation that we have on the fact that a human being that has a certain virus can pass the virus to other human being during all the time of his infective power. And so the man that is still responsible of health in the region of Lombardia made an interview in the television telling the following. Now the index is 0.51, we can approximate it to 0.5. And so what does it mean? It means that now one person to to get coronavirus has to meet 2 other persons. If there are not 2 around him, it cannot be, what is in English? Contaminated, exactly. It cannot be contaminated if you meet only 1. So it's a very good news, because now you need to meet in the very same time 2 people that can contaminate you. So this, of course, is I do not need to explain you why it is wrong. Simply the fact that it is a statistical indexes show you the point. But what is very, very terrible is that people attacked him, and so he made a new interview 2 days after, say, okay, I was not very clear in my explanation, but in fact I was simply vulgarizing it for people. But in fact what I said was correct in the end of the story, because I can take a scientific publication. I gave the scientific publication. You read the scientific publication, where of course the indexes were explained in a good way. So exactly, this is exactly what I was saying. So this make it clear that the person in question was not only ignorant, it did not only made no effort to become competent during a terrible crisis, but still has not the intellectual capacity to learn, has not the intellectual capacity to learn the difference between a statistical indexes and a other sort of evaluation concerning a particular situation, or the one in which one people can meet other people. So how can this person not only make decision about what should have been done in a region, but how can this person learn from scientists and translate the scientist indication in political decision. This, of course, is impossible. So all what he did was completely based on a totally hazardous decision. There was no capacity, clearly no capacity, to translate information from science to politics. So this made me think that one important point here is that politics and science have to collaborate. But in order to collaborate, they have to respect two important points. One, separation of roles, because it's not to scientists to make political decisions, and they're not to political to decide the result of a statistic or to decide what is the better way to stop a pandemic from an epidemiological point of view. But on the other side, the respect of separation of decision should be accompanied by a capacity of understanding that depends not only and not essentially on specific competence, but on capacity of abstract thinking that allow one to learn. And so that made clear that what is important here is to have political personnel that perhaps is not specifically competent in different things, because we cannot ask to anyone to be competent. I don't think that we can say that political man is a very bad political man because he's not competent in pandemic, or cannot be in epidemiology, or cannot be competent in anything. But we can ask that he has the capacity of abstract thinking that may make him able to learn what is needed to be learned in a particular situation. And so this is, according to me, a clear example of how formation, not only specific formation, but also fundamental formation in domains that make someone able to abstract think, like mathematics, for example, or philosophy, but physics and many other, is very important, not only for the specific competence that they give, but also for the capacity that they give to learn. So this is my second point. So I don't know whether I am at half of the period or not. I have to, can I make 2 more points or only one?
Yes, you can make 2 more
No, there
points.
is time. Yeah, go ahead.
I can make 2 more points. Okay. Now, the third point is possibly the more polemic in a certain sense, but I was very, very shocked to see at it. I have said in the beginning, I spent my lockdown in California. And I don't know whether many of you knows California. That is a beautiful place. You can see the sky of California. That is a fantastic sky of the summer, but it's also a strange place in a certain sense. And one thing that any one of you can notice if arrives in California is the constant presence of police personnel in the road that are controlling whether you respect the 4 stops rule. That's one of more stupid rules that you can invent for circulation, but that's not the point. They are there to see whether you start exactly in that moment. They are there to see whether when you arrive to stop to stay 2 seconds or less than 2 seconds before starting. And whether they're there to see whether when you go with your kids, as you behave with the kids. I was on the point to be arrested because I was a little bit too energetic in reproaching something to my kids. So policemen arrived to say that you cannot make it. So, you know, is my kid. I did not kill. I will not kill him. I simply the Italian way to behave with them. But so that there is a real presence, and what it was absolutely astonished to me. And that nobody, absolutely nobody, was controlling the respect on the social norm imposed by lockdown. Here there were norms quite clear. You had to go mask, you have not to stay more than 6 feet close. I'm not discussing whether that is normal, good or not. So I know that there are different opinions about that. People that think that are against democracy. I am not thinking that, but I'm not to respect it. It's not my point. So I am not evaluating the fact that his indication, his norm are good or not. My point is that they were not. They were imposed by the governor of the state, and so it was clear to me that the police personnel should have been there in order to make this norm to be respected, even if they are bad for someone. And no, nobody. The only person that was there to control that you had a mask was private personnel in the supermarket that was in the enter of supermarket asking you to put a mask if you wanted to enter without the mask. But absolutely never, I've seen only one policeman that was still there in order to control whether he was respecting or not the 4-stop rules, to ask people that were walking without mask or were going very close to others, no, sorry, you have to stay alone, you have to put the mask. In Italy, for example, this very same norm was introduced by people in order to go out from home had to sign a certificate with an auto certification of the reason for which they went out of home. Here, absolutely, this was not required, and anyone could make exactly what she or he wanted without any control. So this makes me clear that here the police personnel is more here to punish than to contribute to a better organization of life. And you can imagine that this impression became even greater in front to the terrible fact of the homicide of George Floyd. I use the word homicide because it was an homicide. So I don't know whether you saw the videos. In the first days after it, this is very sad to say it, but this happened very often in the United States. So I was not very attentive to the situation. Then I decided to look at the video, and when you look at the video, it's impossible not to be attentive to what happened. This was a clear homicide made with premeditation of a man that was sitting there waiting for the policeman as telling him something. He was simply sitting there. They took it from the car, they put it, sit on the floor, and they said to him, wait here. And he was waiting there for some minutes before they came there and killed him. So that was absolutely incredible. So when you see that something like that happened, and in the same time, there were no sort of control of whether people was or not respecting the social norms for stopping the pandemic, then, something you begin to think about. What are police here for? What is police here for? And if you want to reason, my sympathy are more for Democratic, but from Republican. But in California there are a lot of Republicans here, especially in my university. So I began accustomed also to reason in a Republican way. So in a Republican way, the question can be put another way: how the money that I pay for my taxes I use it for? Is it used for? You use it for making the 4-stop rule respected, or I use it to organize life in a good way, or they used it to kill black people, or I used it to improve collaboration and to make possible a best integration. So that's a thing. That's something that appeared quite clear. No contribution of police personnel to the respect of the norms for preventing and blocking the pandemic. Now, my fourth point is perhaps insofar as I was also, now I am not so much, but I was an historian of science and particularly an historian of mathematics. So perhaps is the more natural one that I could have made. It is about international scientific collaboration within the scientific community. We assist today to a quite, I would say strange, but in fact it's not strange at all, unfortunately, that on one side we can use internet in order to communicate, to replace at a large extent human contact and collaboration, and on the other side, in the other side, these means are not really used to make real international collaboration in act in order to achieve the more important aim in this moment, it is the discovery of a vaccine. We see that there are a lot of competition between the states, between different communities, even in the same state in different universities, in which people want to arrive to the vaccine before others in order to have the economic advantages of it. And this is very sad to see overall in front to the fact that our using of internet, of Zoom, our way to supplement contact using informatic, using electronic means, make clear how easy an international collaboration would be if it would be really required and implemented. And I think that as a scientific community, we have the duty, in certain sense, to ask for this happen, to ask that, I don't know, it's perhaps something that is illusory, that will never happen because the financial interests behind that are too big. So I don't think that the voice of the international community can really change the situation. But I think that there is also a sense of not to be complice, of not to manifest an opposition to certain way of doing, because I really think that what is more important now in the effort to be common in order to achieve this result, that is a result not only for science, but for society and for private life of millions of people in the world. That's what I wanted to say in my 20 minutes, I think. So I think that it was exactly 20 minutes. Incredible. Okay, thank you. Andres, I do not hear you.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your lecture. So I see that Fernando Salamea has a question for you, Marco.
Ah, the question from Fernando are very difficult in general, so I'm very afraid of it. Please, be kind, Fernando.
No, not at all. Prima di tutto è un piacere vederti, Marco, è da tanto tempo che non ti vedevo. No, è piuttosto un commento. It's just
grazie Fernando, è un piacere sentirti.
It's just a small comment about this passion that Marco always produces in his interventions. Something beautiful there is to see Marco in his visual intervention, the strength of his talking, the passion, and that is something which can be seen as a beautiful thing of this kind of communications, because it is more or less clear that the Solidarity Conference, if it had been done in flesh and blood, it wouldn't have make many sense, because we would have to travel a lot, impossible to do it economically. And so this kind of visual passion and strength is one of the things that you can see as one of the things that you were looking for, of the nice properties of this strange situation. So I was just making that comment. Thanks for your passion, and probably the contrast with the place in which you are living, because probably Palm Springs is one of the less passionate parts of the US.
Yeah, but you know, I'm not normally living in Palm Springs. I'm here for some days because I could not more stay my home after 4 months, so we decided to come here for some days. But normally I'm in Irvine. That is even less passionate than Palm Springs, by the way.
Grazie, Marco.
Prego, Fernando.
Yeah. Grazie, Marco. Yes, you definitely have to come to Paris because we are missing you.
Yes, but,
And
but I cannot. Still I cannot.
I understand.
No, but there is something that Grazie could. You give me the occasion to tell something else that I should have added as a fifth point that does not concern me only, but I'm very much personally concerned because this incredible decision that Donald Trump took yesterday I don't know whether you are aware of that.
No, another
that
one.
stopped the entering the United States of anyone that has not already signed a visa in this day up to December 31. That means that people that has already a visa can enter, but people that can ask for a visa in the next day cannot enter United States. So in my case, I have a authorization of, because my visa expired 2 weeks ago. So I have the authorization to have a new visa, but I have to go out from the United States in order to have the visa on my passport that has been already authorized. But insofar as I have no a visa in this very moment, I cannot go out from the United States, because if I go out from the United States, I cannot come back. So that's what is happening to me.
Crazy.
But it is not my problem. So I will solve the situation, because my wife has a green card, so possibly the situation will be solved. That's not the point. The point is that the response of Donald Trump to this situation is incredible. In order to make the United States can grow up again after the pandemic, we stop people to enter, because so in this way we defend the work in the United States. This is an incredible way of thinking, but it could make it. It could make it. It signed the order yesterday. So now nobody can enter the United States if has not already a visa. So if you wanted to come to the United States in September, for example, still you have not the visa, you cannot.
Well, I'm very pleased that the United States didn't want to give me ESTAS, because I went to for 1 week to a conference in Iran. So I had to ask for a visa, in which the very embarrassed officer in Paris gave me a 10-year visa. So Marco, I can come anytime that the United States becomes clean of the virus. I can
so
come.
you have a 10 years visa?
Absolutely, I have a 10 years visa.
So you can come, so I can invite you.
Yeah, I have a 10-year visa, but this dynamics of inner and outer, and like this situation is accelerating, because all these dynamics have existed also in the past, but the acceleration of the closing, opening up, Fernando's comment made me remind and remember what, and especially so. One of the this enthusiasm and this energy that Fernando was bringing out, where it has in many of the flesh and blood meetings that happen, something usually happens after the talks or in between. Like, for instance, I remember, Marco, last time I saw you was in Popayán, in a city, in the mountains of Colombia, in a region that has been quite affected by our war here in Colombia. And the students were incredibly supportive of all this meeting. And Marco was talking to some math education people and some mathematics people. But walking at night in Popayán, walking at night with Marco and with some other people and with the students in a torch march, because they were, protesting, and we were with the students marching in that colonial city at night, is one of the strongest memories I have. And this was beside the conference. This is something that is not possible now on Zoom. Now, as we will turn off our Zoom screens, we will all go back to our, Palm Springs or Chia or Bogota or Paris or whatever. And there is no, this sort of additional conversation that happens in a space. I also saw you in Vienna. We had a very strong discussion about semantics and syntax. I remember in a restaurant in Vienna, and it was,
I tell it for people that do not know me. I never understood semantics. So I ask for someone that is here that wants to explain me semantic. For me, semantic is useless. I cannot understand.
And I was so upset. But anyway,
it's outside my
Okay. You really want to upset everybody here, Marco. That's just fine.
No, but this was.
We are completely upset.
I would like to add something about. Can I add something about this point of what Zoom can do and what we can do in person?
Yes, of course.
There is one point. You see, this idea of solidarity was inspired by many things, but one of the things it was inspired with was a course that I followed a few years ago in Collège de France. Somebody gave an excellent course, in which this person, rather than talking about himself and his own work, like most of these courses are, he actually took the time to introduce a whole culture that was not that wasn't known to the general public of the 5th arrondissement in Paris. I'm talking here about the course that now you can read the lectures. It was given by Alain Mabancou. It was given about the point of the course was African literature, but that's not at all what the course was about. The course was really about the African culture. So it was very much solidarity and everything, and it was great. And at that time I was thinking I would really love to do something like that. But who is going to invite me to make a course like that in Collège de France? The French academic community is somewhat complicated to navigate, as we know. Yes, and you cannot just stand up and say, yes, you know something about this, and your wife knows something about it. And, your stay in the Palm Springs is somewhat motivated by this kind of lack of navigation. So who is going to give just some bunch of academics that want to say something? Who is going to give them the opportunity to do this? Well, Zoom is going to do it. It's free, and we can do it, and we can say what we want. And I think this is a great advantage.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
È stato fantastico, Marco, ma ci sono forse anche altri che vogliono chiedere qualcosa. Anyone else wants to ask something? No.
I think that is late for you. For me, just the day begins, but for you, that is time to go to sleep.
In Europe, for those in Europe, Allora, grazie tanto. Thank you very much.
Grazie a tutti voi. Lasciatemi parlare in italiano. Gracias a todos in Spanish. Merci to all. The mix of language is terrible. Merci à vous tous. Au revoir.
Merci, Marco.
Je vais essayer de me connecter demain aussi.
Merci beaucoup.
Quand je me réveille.
Marco. Ciao.
Ciao, merci.
Ciao tout le monde.
Ciao, ciao.
Merci.
Ciao.